Hello, Peak Radar fans, and welcome to the studio of sculptor Timothy Nimmo. Hi, Tim.
Hello, Angela.
And thanks for having us. He's invited us into his sculpting studio here in Pinyon Valley, neighborhood of Colorado Springs, to learn about your work. So tell us a little bit about what you do.
I do animal spirits in transition, as I call them. My media is bronze generally. And by animal spirits in transition, I'm talking about how mankind has viewed the animal as a spiritual creature throughout the years and trying to see it through various eyes and aspects and making that animal abstract, which is taking the idea of the animal and combining it and emphasizing it to create some kind of special feeling or thought.
And you probably had that special feeling when you saw some of these finished sculptures and the lines and the twists that Tim puts in those forms. So in addition to giving us a tour of the studio today, he's also going to give us a tour of the process of creating a bronze sculpture, which most of us never get to see. And it all begins right here with clay.
The clay that I work with, Angela, is an oil-based clay. This isn't the standard clay that one would make a cup or a bowl out of. This is a clay that doesn't dry out, so I can set this aside for several weeks and come back to it, and it's still just as soft and pliable as what it was before. And this clay, once we're done with it, we start our process journey, and we no longer will need this clay. It gets melted down and used again. Right now, I'm just doing a basic abstract of a basic sculpture of an elephant as an anatomical study before I abstract. And for me, I'm kind of a literalist with abstraction. It needs to be based in reality, and then that reality twisted, distorted, stylized, and that creates an abstraction in my world. So the elephant's an unfamiliar creature. I'm doing kind of a straight up elephant. This was one of my inspirations, this heavy ponderous creature swimming. And I'm going to make this into a constellation, which has been one of my themes lately. So I did the idea of a basic elephant, kind of getting the feel of it, and then this elephant is going to come out of it, this ponderous creature swimming in space. And this is just a very rough sketch. I'll probably do about 5 or 6 of these before I even get down to the exact pose that I know that I'm going to have.
All right. So after the clay sculpture is done, what happens next?
Well, what happens next is we need to make a mold of this. If anybody's heard the term lost wax bronze casting, that's because for every bronze we need, we're going to have to make a wax. And in order to make a wax, we have to make a mold. So we take various rubber compounds, mix them together, and this was painted on the surface and built up in layers on both sides, and then a plaster shell made over it to give it some support. And then we remove it from the original clay sculpture, which is why these things get so broken up. But we don't care. That's going to get melted down again later on to make another sculpture. Now we have the mold.
Do you ever feel in that moment when you throw away the clay, do you ever feel like, now all I have is negative space?
Not one bit.
No.
Not one bit.
You know this process from years and years.
We have faith.
Yeah.
A lot of faith. So this mold is put together and assembled tightly, banded together, and then we pour molten wax down inside it and slosh that around. And when we're finished, we pop everything apart. This is obviously not the same piece, but it's a similar one. And we get this hollow wax. It's very similar to like a hollow chocolate Easter bunny. We go through a process called chasing. We'll hear that word used again on down the line. And chasing is repairing all of the defects. In this case, we add the horns on. We smooth out some of the lines and fill some of the bubbles. It gets prepared for foundry by being attached by wax stalks to this thing called a cross. At the foundry, they dip this into a liquid ceramic bath. Let it dry, repeat, repeat, repeat. Here's what the ceramic looks like over a piece of wax. The foundry broke this one, but I save it for demo purposes. And then, of course, imagine it's still connected by those rods. Wax is meltable, so we put that into the kiln. The wax melts out through the bottom. The ceramic fires, and then we have an empty space in the ceramic where this used to be. They pour bronze down in through this hole, which is now a funnel, in through the channels, and it fills up the ceramic, cools off, and now we have a bronze head.
So you've gone from positive to negative to positive to negative and now back to positive.
I sometimes
It's fascinating.
teach this, and what helps my students grasp this when they start to get confused is ice cubes and ice cube trays. We're just using different materials
Yeah.
and going through the process a few times.
Yeah.
So this gets cut away. This in bronze gets melted down. The ceramic is broken away with hammers. And we have a bronze. You can see the bronze has a lot of defects. Sometimes things get broken. We have to cut holes in it. Sometimes we have to cut things completely apart. Then it gets sandblasted, and all of this has to be repaired, and it has to be restored so that we can't tell that there was ever any sort of cutting apart or any sort of process defects. For example, that piece we referred to earlier, Constellation, this is a copy which has just come back from the foundry, and you can see we've cut holes in this thing. They're taped together right now so I don't lose them. Here's where those gates attached. The ceramic shell has to get inside and outside of the wax, so that has to be cleaned out.
So there's still a lot to do when it leaves the foundry.
This must be turned into this.
Wow.
So you can see how much work is still left to do.
Yeah.
This is called a patina. You saw the different colors on the different sculptures before. This one is black because of the idea of the night constellation. But this bronze, once it's finished, you can see what a piece of old bronze looks like that hasn't been finished. It's not very attractive and a little bit gross. And we have to apply an artificial coloration to it with heat, minerals, acids, things of that nature in a controlled fashion to give us the look that we want to have, that we hope will actually help the idea out.
Right. Well, I'm going to come back on camera with you here. So thanks again, Tim, for having us into your studio. I've learned something. I hope that you have too, and built a new appreciation for exactly what goes into those bronze sculptures that you see in studios and in galleries around our region. There's not many people who get into this process, and Tim is really a professional. If you'd like to see more of his work, you can see it at sacredstag.com, or locally you can visit Tracy Miller Gallery in Manitou Springs. Thanks again, Tim.
Thank you so much.